Hello and welcome. Today I'm sharing with you some of the most beautiful experiences I've had watching wildlife and also finding some extraordinary behaviour too. When I was just 7 years old, I was fascinated with such wildlife programmes such as Survival Angular and the BBC's Trials of Life series. I did not realise, however, at the time, that some of the amazing wildlife species that we saw in these magnificent programmes were actually just 1 hour's drive away from York in the United Kingdom here. A few years later, my mum got to hear of this unique place called Bempton Cliffs, where you can go up to the cliff tops and watch thousands of seabirds such as puffins and gannets. My dad drove us there, which was about an hour's drive, and when I looked out upon the cliffs for the first time, I was greeted with this most extraordinary spectacular. Thousands of seabirds come to these sheer cliffs to breed every year, and by watching them more and more as I was growing up, I got to recognise some magical behaviour. Take a look at this. A kittiwake feeds its graceful chick with oily and nutritious fish. A juvenile gannet is exercising his wings to build up strength, for soon all the chicks will have to leave. Run by the RSPB, the Royal Society of Protection of Birds. At these stations we get to observe the seabirds pairing up, brooding their eggs and raising their chicks. The seabirds here rely on the health of the sea, and there are signs here that all is not well at present. In February of this year, a week of storms battered the Yorkshire coast. Thousands of dead marine life were washed up, including many types of shellfish, sand eels, and even porpoise and young seals. These natural storms were once a rare event, and you might see about 3 in, I'd say, about 80 years of living. Now they're happening more frequently, and is this possibly due to global warming? Meanwhile, more closer to home for many of us, they are freshwater ponds. In Newport, East Ridding of Yorkshire, here lies Chalky Pond. It's about 7.5 acres in size, roughly. When conditions are right, a magical transformation occurs. An aquatic nymph is climbing out of the water for the very first time, as now a chemical change is underway. Metamorphosis has already begun. Metamorphosis is the ability to change physical structure through cell growth. In this case, it's about to change from an aquatic to a winged creature. This process cannot be rushed and could take perhaps up to 3 hours to conclude. A nymph is about to walk past a damsel on its present course. Although the damsel has already partly changed into its adult form, it cannot fly yet. Therefore, if it was to be accidentally knocked into the water, this would spell disaster. It's a tense moment, but thankfully seems to have survived it. The skin splits down the back, they emerge and inflate their wings and abdomen. This is all part of the process to gain their adult form. And this is it. Both damsels and nymphs are predatory, but they cannot breed until they become adult damsels. The males, who are slightly more colourful than the females, put on these colourful courtship displays and form a wheel. The female at the bottom below puts her abdomen under the water surface to lay her eggs on the vegetation. A few species of waterfowl breed here, such as grey-leg geese, who use the lily pads as a hunting ground for their goslings. And mallard ducks also take advantage of the seasonal boom of aquatic life. However, all is not well in this habitat either. In just a few months in 2018, we went from this to this. The grey heron now doesn't even have to use its magnificent hunting style. Fish perish as algae chokes the pond. An aquatic plant called a rigid hornwort congealed under the surface of duckweed, covering the entire surface of the pond and therefore choking a lot of aquatic species. This series of photographs shows the rigid hornwort congealing underneath the duckweed. Many nets of this were taken up from the pond's surface. And fish are often the victims of the algae fallout. All seemed pretty bleak indeed, but you cannot underestimate community spirit round here. Many of the local people bonded together to save Chalky Pond. A collective group hired a trash pump which had a blade inside to chop up the offending hornwort. By pumping the weed up the bank and into a big net hammock. Once the hammock was full, they emptied it onto more netting on fields nearby, where it could be transported for fertiliser. The danger from the hornwort weed and the duckweed combined has not altogether gone away and is trying to make a comeback in the pond. However, things are looking a lot better this year, and as a result, even tench fish have been spotted spawning in the reeds. Indeed, fish stocks are recovering in Chalky Pond, and it is hoped that the mallards get a chance of breeding successfully next year. At Bempton Cliffs, fulmars have been found on a scientific survey with plastic in their stomachs, and it is hoped that their numbers can recover, and thankfully the people of Bridlington have been clearing up the beach, doing particular litter picking stations, helping people to dispose of the plastic more easily. Kittiwake numbers have halved since I started going to Bempton Cliffs all those years ago, and that really is a worry as the climate has warmed up since and there has been overfishing. But hopefully mankind can reverse that in the community spirit that we have seen here at both Bridlington and Chalky. At Chalky Pond, Fish stocks have recovered magnificently this year, which is great news for all of the spirited local people. And at Bempton Cliffs, gannets have made a phenomenal comeback and are doing just great. And you can keep up to date with the wildlife at Bempton Cliffs with the RSPB website. And on Facebook, Save Chalky Pond. Well, keep watching wildlife and take care and good night.